So first of all, let's do introductions. My name's Lisa Chatterton. I'm the business manager at the Fashion Innovation Agency at London College of Fashion. Our remit is to explore how emerging technologies can transform the fashion industry. So we work with cutting edge technologies, and we're looking at how they can transform the way that designers and brands make product, showcase product, and sell product. And then we are building proof of concepts, testing them out, and then informing the industry and students alike as to how impactful they are and how they're going to disrupt things in the future. So that's me. I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves. So shall we start with Alessandra?
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Thank you all. I'm Alessia Spagnoli. I'm an assistant professor and a researcher for Polimi, Politecnico di Milano. I worked in the design and culture section for the design department, and I mainly deal with the research and the teaching activities related to how to enhance and provide more insightful experiences for cultural products, high cultural products, for example, in the case of CCIs, in the areas of CCIs and fashions, using a design-driven approach.
Thank you, Alessandra. LOFO, would you like to go next?
Yes, hi everyone. Thanks a lot for having us. We're LOFO. I'm Anna, and together with my partners there, we have a clothing company producing unisex and transitional garments in our microproduction lab in East London in Poplar Works. We're supported by Centre for Fashion Enterprise and London College of Fashion. We're very happy to be part of this community.
Excellent. Yep. Great to see you guys. And Anna.
Hi guys. Hello. Hi. My name is Anna Ellis. I am head of business development at Making for Change, which sits in the Department of Social Responsibility at London College of Fashion. We have 2 manufacturing units as part of Making for Change, one in a women's prison where we provide industry recognized training, and one at Poplar Works with Anna Henstey, and where we provide training for women from the local community, and also commercial production for designers. So we're looking at how we can change the way manufacturing is viewed and bring some innovation into the manufacturing process.
Fantastic, excellent. And finally, David.
Hello, I'm David, founder of Italian Artisan. We basically help international brands to produce in Italy in an easy way. So we're positioned in the premium luxury market. Italy has more than 60,000 small micro businesses that are making the luxury of the world, the production of premium luxury brands. And most of them are intermediate, most of the time, by bigger players. So what we basically do is giving them access and empowering them in a local way. So we have a presence which is phygital, online with the platform where we help international brands to connect with the producers, and on-site in the different districts with our product managers referencee. So basically, if you are from every part of the world, you can produce in Italy and have outsourced not only your eyes in Italy, but as well your arms that can manage all the production.
Brilliant. Thank you for coming here today. So our topic is to discuss the dynamics between craftsmanship and technology. So I would like to kick off the conversation by asking how you would each define craftsmanship. Who wants to jump in?
Oh, may I? Yes,
yeah, please
thank
do.
you. Okay, thank you very much. But it's not so an easy question, because if I talk to craftsmanship, the first idea is to have something like manual actions connected to a specific technique. But we usually forget that it is mainly also a cognitive and a projectual process, a design process behind this manual action. And real core of the craft or the artisanal practice. It is a really cultural practice because on the one hand it is related to a specific technique that evolves maybe mainly over times, but also it is also related to a local identity that is made by some heritage techniques, traditions, and so on. And so in defining this local identity, we need to have, how can I say, a process of double recognition, because a community of artisans, of craft people can recognize itself using this set of values, and on the other hand, the others that from the outside, can I say, recognize this community with this specific set of values. So from my personal point of view, the main topic of the craft is the fact that it is a cultural process on one hand, and this is processual on the other.
Interesting.
I think I have maybe a bit of a broader view of craftsmanship, in the sense of it's creating something beautiful, something that you are skilled at, and something that you use your hands to create. I think the pandemic has actually shown us that people have gone into what they consider more craftsmanship type things. People have been at home and they've been suddenly making things and creating things. And I think they would argue that they may not be part of a specific community, but they see what they're doing as craftsmanship. So so I think I have a bit of a broader definition of what can constitute as craftsman, craft and craftsmanship.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of craftsmanship, because everyone in this world, if it's an artisan and can pass on their skills, create value and meaning in this world, it creates craftsmanship. And this is about creating new things, creating value, putting your ideas out there in the world, and inspire other people to make their stuff at home. And
and it's powered basically by technology. And I think we agree with the broader view. I'd even take it further, because traditionally has been defined by an opposition to industry. It was slow versus fast. It was people doing stuff in their workshops versus vast production lines. And I think that difference is not valid in a sense, because there are many craftsmen which use technology and they accept it makes their production process easier. And now, like Anna said, they have an openness towards the world to show their craft. So this openness allows them to integrate technology and still be craftsmen. I mean, from my point of view, it's really has to do with how you use technology and the respect you offer the product that you're making, not necessarily the tools you're using. And of course the techniques are really important, but it's also important to have a certain sense of what you're doing. And this is where there's a contrast between industrial and craftsmanship in the way you perceive or respect your product and your craft.
David, have you got anything to add to that?
Well, it has been said a lot, so I'm trying to build on that. I believe that craftsmanship is a mix of three main areas: time, human touch, and culture. So I start vice versa by bringing an example. The culture is something that let us understand. It's the know-how. So I bring you the example where I was going to eat to my grandma, and she always made a beautiful and super tasty salad. So I started to ask her where she was looking for this amazing salad. And she told me where. So I bought the salad, but it wasn't the same, even I was eating the same salad. The human touch. So I started to understand and ask her why wasn't the same salad. So I had to go there and look at the process she was making. And the process she was making was touching every leaf of salad and clean every part of it, while I was just cutting them and putting them in a washing stuff. So that's the human touch that made it great. And of course, it takes time.
Yeah.
So I strongly believe that when we talk about craftsmanship, we talk about ancient times passed by people. Know-how that is not only know-how which we can read, but it's know-how that we have to experience. And it has been experienced by ages. So we have to respect that when we talk about craftsmanship. And I believe that technology applied to that can be an enhancing of that activity, enhancing the respect to that time as well.
Thank you. That was brilliant. So actually, Steve, you kind of like were leading me on to my next question, where I wanted to ask you all about how technology is really helping to support and grow traditional artisans and what more can be done. David, perhaps you want to start with this one.
Oh, sure. I didn't understand it was my fault. Okay. So first of all, we have to respect that there were traditions on doing stuff in a very different way. Now I bring the example of Italy, for example. The digitalization in Italy was really low before what happened last year, and it accelerated a lot. But even it accelerated, so many artisans and small micro enterprises started to have a higher level of digitalization. They still continue to maintain their craftsmanship processes. So, and this is crucial when we talk about an acceleration, because if we accelerate too much, the information, the technology, we cannot think that we can bring in the same speed the craftsman's processes that has been done for 50, 100, or 200 years on those areas. And when I talk about craftsmanship in just one company, I believe that is craftsmanship in a local district. So I always say that we're not talking about only family businesses, but we are a family of business families. So it means that technology can help to put all these families, all these businesses together, but it might understand which are the processes behind the local activities that were not digitalized before or technologized before. And this is crucial if we want to really create impact with technology on what has been done until now.
Anna, what's your view on that?
I love your definition of craftsmanship in terms of the touch and time and location. I love that definition. I think I'm going to use that as my new definition of craftsmanship. But my question, I think I would say, is are there elements of that technology can enhance without necessarily losing the skills of craftsmanship? One of the lecturers at LCF, Ella, I'm just going to name her. She creates beautiful. She creates dresses or outfits for dancers. So they are all bespoke. They're all handmade, and they're all very specific to the particular client that she's working with. But she also works with clo, and she will do her initial development and designs and ideas in clo, whereas in the past she would be making multiple samples. So in that virtual world, she has the exact proportions of who that client is. So she's actually seeing what the person will look like in the virtual world. And then she will then create using her hands to physically make that garment. So I think, can technology be used to not necessarily take away from the skill of actually physically making something beautiful, but can help in the process of coming to that end product?
Yeah, that's a lovely example.
Yeah, I think we can jump in with another example with actually what we're doing as a fashion business in our studio. We've basically arranged everything in our studio, from cutting table to pattern making to sewing to prototyping, basically everything. And we were searching for ways of making our life easier, basically. And they came up with this idea of projecting the patterns on the cutting table so that we can get rid of the cardboards and help us making iterations way much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what we did. Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, it's basically taking a thing that's traditional in a way, cutting fabric, and thinking of how we can make it easier while still, I mean, we're still cutting the fabric. The fact that we have a projection coming down on the table, and we've got rid of the cardboard. It's the same process of cutting. Well, we're not cutting it with scissors, but with those roll things. But it's a good example of what can be done. So in terms of taking a process that is artisanal and making it slightly easier, and for small businesses, that was basically out of reach. So there's solutions for bigger production facilities that produce up or more than 10,000 garments per run. But for smaller workshops, there just aren't, or there hasn't been given any thought to solutions that might make the artisan's life easier, still conserving their craft, but using technology. And that's really interesting. So there's that part. I also wanted to quickly touch up on the access that artisans have been given. And David, you basically have a platform in this area, which is great. I mean, if you were a cobbler like 100 years ago, you just have access to the market in your own town. So that would be like 100, 1,000 people. Right now, you can be a cobbler, put your stuff on Etsy, put your stuff online, and just like that, you have access to a vast market that can also help you, develop your craft. Maybe you're a cobbler and you learn some stuff, or you do things differently, or you find a really nice niche. So in terms of, access, and in terms of how it can help with the production line on a small, almost nano scale, those are two areas in which technology really makes a huge difference, I think.
Can I add something related to this fact, to the fact that technology can enable an easier way to manage the craft? And in my opinion, that is strongly related to the fact that we need to update skills related to craft. Because if, as for example, in the case of clothes, I need to go through a process that is both manual and digital, I need to have a different skilled professional on this. Okay, we need to move also educational curricula into this direction. On one hand, we have the preservation of the traditional skills that is difficult because according to a generational change, it is not easy. But on the other hand, we have new professionals that they are purely open to this new integration. And this is also one line of research of the European Commission, because we have at least one call that is focused on this, on preserving craft but not as a museographical items that need to be put in a museum or in an archive or something else that is static, but a way to find new methodologies and new ecosystems that enables new professionals to merge these two dimensions.
I'm glad you mentioned that, actually, Alessandra, because one of the things I was just thinking about is, when we think about the iterative process that designers go through, and you mentioned it, Steve, when you were talking about your pattern cutting, and you're using technology to sort of further that development and to make it more efficient, to make it better. And I was just wondering about, this sort of protection of this artisanal knowledge. And I think, using technology as a tool to teach and to preserve crafts is really interesting and is absolutely the way to go. I don't know if anyone else feels that, any more to add about this protection of this knowledge, this, these techniques that have been handed on from generations to generations.
I think also there should be an acknowledgement that some of these, I'm going to use pattern cutting as an example. That's a real skill. You may not call it a craft, but it's to be a really good pattern cutter is artisanal, I guess. It's a very skilled. I can't even put my sentences together again. Anyway, so you're a skilled pattern cutter. People think, okay, so does that mean that you can't then translate that information into, say, digital pattern cutting? In order for you to understand digital pattern cutting, you need to be a pattern cutter. So it's like taking that manual knowledge that has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years in terms of how the knowledge of constructing a garment, and updating your skills to be able to then do it digitally. But it doesn't take away from that original skill that we had. And I think that's how we need to look at craftsmanship. It's not taking away from that original knowledge. It's taking that knowledge and maybe bringing it forward or sharing it in a different way, but still totally acknowledging that original skill, that original craftsmanship is still very much needed and valued in today's digital world.
Well, yeah. I'd love to add on that, Anna, because I love the concept of evolving things. Such as human beings, we've always been artisans since the first day we tried to survive. So we started to do things with our hands. And we evolved the way by doing better things with better way of doing things. So basically, in the moment that we're living right now, we're accelerating a lot through technology that is challenging us as human beings as well, such as artificial intelligence, where it's challenging our human intelligence. And on the other side, technology is challenging, which are the old school way of doing craftsmanship processes or artisanal works. So I strongly believe that when we talk about how to apply digitalization technology on artisanal processes, we have to think about it not as a disruption. So this is a term that most of the time we talk in the innovation industry or in the tech industry. We always talk about the new unicorn that can be born, where it disrupted the industry or wherever. I strongly believe that this word doesn't exist in this type of world. Because if we disrupt what has been done for thousands of years, for millions of years, we're disrupting our human being, which cannot be possible. So I believe it is a matter of an evolution approach. So as artisanal communities needs to understand that this needs to be upgraded, not disrupted. And the upgrade, it means that it has to be integrated with traditional approaches, but as well with the power of the technology that can accelerate processes on one side, but can even optimize the actual processes by, optimizing wastage, for example. And most of the time, the biggest cost for artisans are the wastes. because they do not manage the optimization of these aspects, because they're just doing as best they can because they love the products. So there is another word that we need to apply to this probably think tank, is the business push that can enhance or empower or disrupt the industry. Because the artisanal way of thinking is, I love to do a product that I wouldn't even leave you. I even wouldn't let you have my product because I love it. I've done it. So on the other side, we have the industry that says, the more you sell, the more you're good. The more you grow, the fastest you grow, the best it is. I believe that we need to bridge that aspect in the middle way. We need to understand what is in the middle, especially during these times where human challenge is bigger than we think.
Thank you. So, you know, people are buying craft because they connect to the product, they connect to the culture, and they want to buy something that holds these stories. How do you feel that technology can amplify these, you know, generations of stories? And you know, what have you got any examples of this? Alessandra, would you like to answer that one?
Okay, thank you. I think that today we have a lot of mature technology, AR, VR, 3D printings, and so on. And fashion uses these technologies spot, okay, randomly. And especially when in the retail sector, for example, when needs to sell something or present something or showcase something to the customer. Mainly what is missing today, it is this integration of this technology, but in a meaningful way, because technology needs to serve craft. It's not the driver. It is one of the tools that need to serve craft and the fashion system to go in a more sustainable way, okay? We need to find a way to integrate and use all these technologies to create a meaningful path, but all along the process of the supply chain of the fashion system, from the production and arriving to the selling of the product, of the communication of the product. I think that technology can also stimulate craft, okay, respecting the timing of craft. That is not the timing of fast fashion, for example, of big industries that need to sell and decrease their amount of selling items, okay. In this case, technology could be useful, but we need to drive this process because we cannot have a tech-driven approach in this case because it could not be sustainable.
Anyone else got anything to add to that?
I think a good example is what LOFO is doing. The core of the brand is craftsmanship. They started that as leather artisans, and each year they have the LOFO Foundation Craft Prize, where they celebrate modern craft and they're reinventing it. And I think they're doing an excellent job in gathering all these great people in the competition and celebrating craft.
Yeah, and it's good that also, you know, we're lucky because right now in the market, craft sells, which wasn't necessarily valid in the past. I mean, there are lots of brands who are talking about the whole sourcing cycle, the whole production cycle, where the fabrics are made, who makes them. There's, you know, brands like Story MFG or Bodhi who are putting the artisan story at the core of their brand. And what I think they're doing very well is not only showing, because most of the times it's about awareness. See, there's Artisan doing this stuff now. They open up digitally and everybody can see what they're doing. But they also found the context in which through their brand and through their sales and putting the artisan story at the core of their brand, they're also helping the artisans making a living, not only telling about the stuff that they do and promoting it as a story that pushes their brand forward, but also basically helping them go on with their craft, providing the context. And yeah, brands that do that are, I think, they're the way going forward. And I'm really glad that we live in a moment where lots of these brands have success and these stories catch on, and they're actually a competitive advantage and a commercial advantage.
Yeah, I agree, Steve. And we've done a few projects at the Fashion Innovation Agency where we've used technology as a way to communicate a brand's inspiration behind a collection. And what's interesting to see is when you use these immersive technologies, how you can transport somebody into the designer's world, and it resonates with somebody. And we did a project last year, it was a VR fashion showcase, the Fabric of Reality, and there was some research that we did as part of that. And the results were astounding. 90% of people who stepped inside this immersive world actually felt a closer connection with the designer. As a result of that, they understood the designer better. And something like 78% of them actually felt that they then valued the products more because they had a richer understanding of what was going on behind the scenes. And I think, obviously, adding that longevity to product, and it holds huge value. And obviously, people are paying more for these pieces. So it's that richness that I love to see coming through and being evoked by technology. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add about to that question about how technology can...
I would love to build on that, Lisa, and what Stellan said regarding we have an opportunity right now. So there are three main words that we hear every day: diversity, inclusion, and sustainability. So we're thinking about artisanal districts. We're talking about very different and very inclusive reality. Most of them are working in a family approach, which is not just a family business, it's a familiar approach on how to do business. So regarding that, it's super important that the diversity of these different areas or different districts are huge. And every particular thing or every particular even raw material can be different from another, even is the same, because of a local approach, because of the local tradition, because of the local even approach on how to grow the grass or the materials we're talking about. The last step is sustainability. So if we think about how sustainable were these communities before the internet, they were super sustainable. We're not talking about something that has to be sustainable. It was already sustainable. So when everything started, especially in Italy, I was in New York in 2012, and I got amazed how they were selling bio food at a huge price compared to the not organic food, which was a lot less price. So at that time, I realized that in Italy, we didn't have that problem. There wasn't GMO food.
Right.
It was all bio. So when we think about how different are these districts and this reality and the huge empowerment we can give to them through technology, we're already talking about transparency. And this is another term, another hashtag that we hear every day. So if we give the right transparency of what's really behind the scenes of these artisanal communities through technology, that's how we make the human-to-human approach. I bring another hashtag. So thanks to technology, we can really cut distances and let people understand more. And I build again on Stellian words, which were, we have an opportunity to let them understand what's the craftsmanship power behind the scenes. And this is already bringing the knowledge forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. So how is technology really changing craftsmanship in fashion? So we've seen the rise of digital clothing, particularly over the last 12 months. And I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. Like, would you consider that to be a new craft, a new craftsmanship? And do you think that, you know, digital fashion, for instance, is that a good thing? I'm going to ask this to LOFO, Anna and Steve. What's your opinion on that?
Well, we're technology optimists, so from that point of view, we believe technology can help. Of course, it comes with a great deal. So there's two sides of it. There's the side where you have to be worried about so much other stuff, how it changes the crafts, how it impacts a lot more than the craft, you know, in a broader sense, even stuff related to AI, like it was mentioned before, privacy concerns or all of that. We have to think about how that impacts, but there's also like the very good side of it. I think with digital garments, people are attracted to what's new, and there's a hunger for new types of expression. You can see that with, I don't know, the NFT craze that's been going on lately, and how that impacted fashion. So there's a bunch of new things that people don't fully understand, but even because customers don't fully understand it, makes it even more mysterious, and you're even more attracted to it. And I think there's going to be a synthesis going on with real life and digital. I mean, all of these digital garments are kind of like at the extreme of what can happen. You see a Gucci bag being sold with, I don't know, 3,000 pounds, and you're like, whoa, what the hell? Why would anybody buy that? But there are people buying that, and you know, we can see how it will tie with what's going on in the traditional part of the industry, or the real life part, which is weirdly right now the traditional part of the industry. But I think we're pretty sure that it will impact it in some way, and that's where things are heading. So I don't know if that can be stopped. I mean, historically, technology hasn't been ever stopped into like making its impact on crafts, not in music, not in cooking, but there is this return and reinterpretation of craft through technology, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Good and bad.
Yeah, mostly. I guess there's a new audience there, isn't there, who, you know, think nothing of purchasing digital items in a way that probably wouldn't have been conceived, you know, a few decades ago. But it's interesting. Alessandra, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that digital items are a very extreme example, because in this case we totally forgot the human touch, the human dimension. But maybe in this case, technology, that is the core of the digital items, can stimulate creativity, and maybe it cannot be considered a traditional craft, but something else, and something that could help craft, for example. I don't know why, how in this moment, but it could be. And I don't know if this example in particular could be a long-lasting trend. I don't know. It's too early now to imagine this one, but maybe we can imagine a future that is real digital, another buzzword that we use in this period. So a real bridge between the physical dimension and the digital one.
I think it kind of goes back to that question at the beginning about how you define craftsmanship. So I know a few of you mentioned, things being made by hand, and I think yes and no. I guess on one hand, if you've got somebody that's spending an awful lot of time and you've got a superb quality of work, they're creating it using digital tools, and that's something that they are learning in this digital age, and they're passing those techniques on, down the way. So it's kind of almost like this new form of craftsmanship, digital craftsmanship, which I think is interesting. So I've got a few questions coming through from the audience. Shall I jump in, or does anybody else want to add anything to that last question?
I'll just add that I think, I have 2 teenage boys, and they live in the gaming world. They're not so interested in fashion, but in the gaming world, people buy clothes, they buy skins. So I think we have to acknowledge that digital fashion is not going away. But I think we might need to look at how do we get that generation also interested in the physical craftsmanship behind some of the things that they're seeing digitally. So that both sides, we're not replacing one with the other in their minds, because all they're seeing is the digital and not really appreciating the craftsmanship behind it. So it's how can we bring that using technology into their world, so that it's not seen as something that is, old-fashioned, or something that their grandparents used to do, or parents.
Yeah.
The past months you go.
Go on. I think I'm
I
a little bit.
wanted to add that the past months have accelerated the way we consume fashion using technology, and it's incredible to see this blend of digital and physical, and all these great apps that let you try on things in your app just from your the comfort of your own space. You can buy clothing in Animal Crossing and all sorts of games. You can do fashion shows in Animal Crossing or Minecraft. It's pretty incredible what's going on.
Well, I just love to add a couple of words on what you were just saying, Anna, regarding the evolution of the physical approach to the digital approach for your kids as well. Because I love as well gaming. From a fun point of view, I don't play games. But I had to realize that when the digital items thing came out, I had to try it. So I believe that digital is just an evolution of the analogical part. So as well as how we build our platform, which is an ecosystem platform, we had to understand first the analogical aspects on the traditional way of doing it, and after translate it into digital. And I strongly believe that the future as well on the digital items and the digital tech craft is just an evolution of the analogical craft. Because if you want to buy a digital item today, you might find an early stage craft or a super expert craft. And you're going to see the difference even digitally. So when you buy like a branded product in this gaming, you see that they are full of details. And when you buy just a digital item in an e-commerce or whatever it is in a marketplace for digital items, you might find really easy or not very sophisticated items. And this again, I believe it is coming again from the first step that we talked about on the craft, on how we can define this digital new craftsmanship as well. So it's a matter of time, human touch, and sensibility on know-how on how to do things. So I strongly believe that there are really common things among analogical and technological craft, but we really have to define how to give the new generation a process to go through, and I strongly believe on that, to go through the analogical craft first in order to better understand the digital craft after, and not vice versa. Because it's going to be really hard for them to go back to physical once they understood how fast and how incredible could be the virtual world, but the virtual world is virtual.
It's a bit like your example, Anna, with the pattern cutting. learn your craft by hand, and then, in turn, hopefully you'll be a far superior digital. Yeah. I've got a question here for you, David. You talked about blending the human touch with the abilities technology gives us in the craft space. Is there a value, for example, in returning to traditional low-tech skills completely?
Whoa, what a question. Thank you. I believe yes, if you want to live locally, and if you're planning to live
craft,
and if you're planning to live very inclusive as well. So I strongly believe that if we just reset everything, and we just go back in the local communities activities where Stalin as well were talking about, we already have what we're looking for in the nowadays actual, real, hyper-connected life. So yes, there is a huge value. And there is the value of happiness as well. Because once you had 100 clients, you weren't thinking about 10,000 clients. When you were thinking about 100 clients, you were talking to each of them physically. And maybe sometimes you were going out for dinner with them. You get to know each other and get to value the personal life of these people behind the products. When you have 10,000 people, it's hard to get to know each other, even we have the data. But the data, again, something virtual. So I strongly believe that there is a great value of better understanding how we want to evolve or not evolve this crafts approach, which is for me a lifestyle approach. It's not just how we make products or how we produce. And yes, I believe that.
Yeah, I completely agree. When you think about it sort of in terms of the job market, the future job market, and the idea of, thousands and thousands of people in warehouses just stacking boxes to fulfill all these online orders versus that, human face-to-face rapport where you're creating something bespoke for that individual. It's such a shift, isn't it, in quite a relatively short space of time. Got another question here from the audience. Is there a responsibility to use technology to push innovation in craftsmanship in the fashion tech industry? Anyone want to jump in with that one?
Not easy question as well. I try to start, so I break the ice on that. I break the ice with one sentence. I believe that we have a responsibility to use technology to push human evolution or not. So it's not about only craftsmanship. It's about how we apply technology on our human lives. Because as we talk to the new generations, it's an extension of their being, the digital world or the technological world. If you're talking to baby boomers, it can be a tool. If you're talking to my generation, it can be something that I'm confident with, but it's not fully part of my life. So we're dealing with different generations nowadays, and we have to take into consideration that we are evolving all together. And the only common thing is technology.
And David, you mentioned a really interesting word earlier, happiness. And, that's really important as well, because doing stuff with your hands, using your skills, even if it's coupled with technology, gives you a sense of satisfaction as well. More so if somebody is buying that and sustaining that craft. So yeah, the happiness aspect is really important. And I'm, for instance, and I work with women in prison. That's a really good example, I think, of how craft can be used as a way to basically change your life or learn something that makes you happy and gives you that sense of fulfillment. If technology can make more of that, I think that's a really good way to use it.
I agree with both of you. I think you're right also, David, about the generational thing, and just using the lockdown as an example. So many of definitely my generation were using, all of a sudden you've got all of this free time, you want to make something, you're baking, you're sewing, you're doing all these things that you probably haven't thought of for years. But then the younger generation, are they just on their computers and their phones and their laptops? You know what I mean? So are we looking at the things that make us happy from, are they different from one generation to the other? You know, because again, using my kids as an example, they didn't make anything, but they probably did on Minecraft or Roblox or whatever other games that they're physically creating things digitally on. Whereas for me, it had to be something tangible. So maybe it's a generational problem.
I think it is, but I also feel like we have a responsibility to, you know, take them off the technology sometimes.
Absolutely.
To kind of experience the craft, because I know from my own kids, if they were left to their own devices, it would be all sitting on electrics, you know. And then once you take them off that, don't get me wrong, there are a few arguments that go hand in hand, but then, you know, you get them painting and drawing and they get really immersed in it, and it's that slowing down, and it's that satisfaction of creating something physical, which they don't get from the games per se. And it's interesting to see how they feel at the end of that process. It's different, they're calmer, they're more relaxed, but it's almost pulling them away from the digital. And I think it's a hard task.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think we need to do that more often so that they don't lose that sense of what the benefits are from what from what we all can see, the benefits of doing something physical. So you're absolutely right. We should encourage our kids or the younger generation to embrace the traditional and craftsmanship.
And since that all your ideas that I agree with are related with the topic of awareness, we need to be aware of what we are doing also with the technology. So improving this awareness, we are also able to have a responsible approach to our things, situations, and the community as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Having that balance is really important. So for everybody in this space, so technology and craftsmanship, what are you excited about now?
Everything. I think for me it's the blending of both, because I feel people are hungry for both digital stuff happening and both physical. I mean, especially now that things are easing up, people are hungry to see each other, to talk to each other, to be in the same space, you know, meet and share their ideas and build stuff together. I think this is what excites me more.
Yeah, pretty much the same, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. It's the blending of the two. The possibility.
Pardon, what was that, David? I didn't catch that.
I strongly agree as well. I strongly believe that we have to combine both of them if we want to evolve in a responsible way, again, as humans. So one of our industry, the fashion one, is the one that is super important for the human being, because after starting to eat, they started to dress as artisans. So I believe there is a lot of craftsmanship. And now it's a time for evolution. And because we have to think as well that before we weren't aware, building on what Alessandra said, we weren't aware on how much finite supplies we had in this planet. And we are now aware that they're not infinite. So again, by bringing infinite and finite and something that I can finish, we can think that virtual is an infinite game. Physical is not. And we cannot start from digital to think physical. So I'm really excited that we have a responsibility not for what we're doing every day, but as well for new generation upcoming, because we know about Generation Z, we still don't know what's next. We can build them. We can build the right environment to build the new generations that can really have a sense of human being community and a new sense of craftsmanship communities. A new way of doing something for good for us and for their next generations. Because in 20 years, they're going to think about that. So I'm really excited about it.
This has been a brilliant discussion. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to just try and summarize some of these brilliant points that you've all addressed during this conversation. So I loved the initial conversation about how you define craftsmanship. And I think everybody was on the same page, and I think David summed it up nicely when he talked about time, human touch, and culture. And that's sort of very, very clear for us to sort of identify and hark back to. And I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this conversation is for us to be able to surface what the benefits are for technology in this space, and looking at how technology can help in the process, not to disrupt, but to evolve, to optimize, and to upgrade what craftsmen are doing at present. So I think that's really cool. Clearly, technology plays a part in connecting craftspeople to customers, and in communicating the heritage and the stories behind these pieces. We talked about how technology can be integrated in a meaningful way to serve craft, and Alessandra's point about raising awareness. So, surfacing all of the stories behind the products, all of the energy, all of the skill that goes into those, and also to provide transparency to the customers is really important as we, hopefully move away from this fast fashion and start to, treasure our pieces that we're buying. I think, technology will be really key in reassuring customers that what they're buying is the, authentic piece. And then really just to sort of like finish up on how technology is changing craftsmanship. And I think, Steve, it was you that mentioned about this synthesis of traditional real life craft with digital, and recognizing that there is a new audience who are really, really comfortable with, living and buying things in this digital space, and how we can kind of entice them out of that to recognize the importance of crafts, and to ensure that they appreciate the tradition. And I love the fact that we all recognize that craft can really lead to fulfillment and ultimately happiness, because, that's what we're all here for, right? And now is the time for evolution. Technology can help us with this evolution, but let's not forget the happiness that we all get when we kind of create and make and have that knowledge passed on to us. Has anybody got anything to add before we say goodbye?
Thanks, everybody. It's been really nice.
It was great to chat to you, everyone. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me. You all were wonderful panelists today. So Alessandra, Steve, Anna, Ellis, and David, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and see you all soon. Thank you.